Let's break down the 4 disc profiles in a little bit more of a tactile way so you can actually use this to your advantage. Let's start with Ds. First of all, high Ds, these are the ones that consider themselves to be alphas. I didn't say they are alphas, I say they consider themselves to be alphas. They're the ones that are a little bit more concerned with the car they drive, the clothes they wear. They're people who want to be prominent in a position of authority. So how do you communicate with them? Okay, let me start off with text messages. The way you text message with a high D is to be very clear, distinct, to the point. Let's just say you're setting up home tours for a showing. This is exactly what it would sound like. Hi, Andy. This is Rachel. I have the seller available for us to tour the property at 4 p.m. on Thursday. Does this work? Question mark. That's it. How do you email with a high D? First of all, it's important that you keep the subject heading short and brief. This is true. I've talked to many high Ds, and this is something we all find as a pet peeve. If you're actually going to email, don't reply to an email that we've already had going before. Start a brand new email, and in the subject heading, be very specific about what the email is going to address. Just do this every time, right? I get a lot of emails, I get a lot of phone calls, I get a lot of conversations going back and forth. The home buying process is important to me, but before I actually open the email that you just sent, I want to know how important that email is. So the subject heading should say, home tours for this Thursday. And in the body, what's the email say? Hi, Andy. I spoke with the seller. We have a home tour set up for 4 p.m. Does this work with you? That's it. Phone calls and phone conversations. First of all, if you're having a phone call with a high D and you want them to actually like you or enjoy you, make sure they're the ones that talk the most, right? So a high D, ask a lot more questions and let them wax poetically. A big pet peeve when you're talking with a high D, they're going to say something like, make sure you know to when you're talking on the phone with a high D, do not correct them. Also, do not put yourself on the same level with the knowledge base they're sharing with you. And this is what I mean by it. So let's say you're talking with a high D and they're going to say something like, when we go tour on Thursday, make sure you bring the tape measure because we're going to want to measure that room. Assuming this is something you already talked about in the past. Do not respond with, yeah, I know, I already threw it in my truck. That's not what they want to hear. What they want to hear is, yes, thank you for the reminder. I'll make sure I do it. Like, what are you trying to accomplish here? Are you trying to show them your knowledge base that you could also remember to take the tape measure? Or are you trying to win with them in this conversation? They don't want to hear that's something you already thought of. They want to hear an acknowledgement that what they asked you to do was the right thing. This happens all the time. Frequently, as a high D, I will be in the position with one of my employees or one of my coworkers, and I'll say something like, hey, make sure you bring the widget or the doohickey or whatever it is. And they say, oh, yeah, I already was going to do it. It was already part of my plan. I'm like, I don't care. That's not relevant. I'm not actually asking if you knew or not. I'm just telling you to make sure you did it. And your response is, got it. Like, that's sufficient. So don't try to put yourself on the same knowledge base. Just let them be a little bit of the leader. Let them kind of be the one to kind of instigate the conversation flow. Let them be the one to remind you to bring the tape measure so that you can measure the room. That's not important. What's important is they get to feel like they're the boss. There's going to be a few times in this transaction when a high D is going to say something like, I want to offer 20% less than market value. Those are your occasions to actually assert your dominance over them, to say, we can do that, and I don't believe this is in your best interest. But if you found yourself kind of in a bartering tactic with a high D the whole way about when you're going to show homes, if whether or not the tape measure showed up, and then once again, when it's really important about the home price, they're not going to listen to you. They're just going to think this individual's been arguing with me all along. We should just fire him and get a new client. So save your time to actually argue with a D until it's really important. Until then, let them be the high D. Like I said, you can't out alpha an alpha. And so you either want to sell them a piece of real estate or you want to win a pissing match. Either way, I think what you really want is to sell the piece of contract. So that's very particular to high Ds. Now let's move on to working with Is.